affecting thousands of employees. When he and his wife Kelly, together with the family office Baymont Capital, purchased the Western and Southern Open in 2022, Navarro had an ambitious vision for Cincinnati. He wanted to create a world-class tennis destination that could compete with the biggest events on the calendar. In 2023, he committed to keeping the tournament in Cincinnati for at least another 25 years. And then came the massive investment. The transformation was staggering. The project reportedly cost around $260 million and more than doubled the tournament footprint from roughly 20 acres to more than 40 acres. 13 new courts were added, along with a massive 56,000 square foot player clubhouse featuring a restaurant, coffee bar, lounge areas, and an indoor recovery facility. The complex also expanded its outdoor tennis facilities, added indoor courts, pickleball and paddle courts, and introduced climate-controlled seating on center court. What made the project even more remarkable was the speed. The transformation was completed in only 11 months. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony in August 2025, tournament director Bob Morant described the opening as the result of an enormous team effort. Navarro had made a huge gamble on Cincinnati. The goal was simple: build a modern tennis destination capable of attracting the world's biggest stars and bringing in record crowds. The investment was supposed to elevate the tournament to another level. Then Alex Eala arrived. And suddenly the biggest story wasn't just the new facility. It was the fans. The demand for Eala's matches started before she had even stepped onto the court. Ticket interest surged, and organizers quickly realized that this was not normal tournament demand. Moran had already seen some of the greatest names in tennis compete at the Lindner Family Tennis Center, including Federer, Nadal, and Serena Williams. He had also seen the economic impact of the tournament, with visitors traveling from outside Cincinnati and filling hotels, restaurants, and local businesses. But the response surrounding Alex Eala was something different. The Filipino community was turning the tournament into an event of its own. Fans weren't simply buying tickets. They were rearranging their lives around the opportunity to watch Eala play. One group of friends planned an entire college reunion around a trip to Cincinnati specifically so they could see the young Filipina compete. These friends were living in different parts of the United States, yet they coordinated their schedules and travel plans around one common goal: watching Alex Eala on the court. Then came another remarkable story. One fan had already watched Eala compete in Toronto and decided that wasn't enough. Instead of flying to Cincinnati, the fan reportedly drove for 8 hours just to see her play again. 8 hours on the road for one tennis player. That is the kind of dedication that shows just how powerful the connection between Eala and her supporters had become. And the reaction wasn't limited to Cincinnati. The same phenomenon had already been appearing at other tournaments. Tournament officials had noticed extraordinary demand whenever Eala's name appeared on the schedule. In Washington, ticket demand reportedly surged dramatically, while Toronto had already experienced the enormous turnout surrounding the young Filipina star. Now Cincinnati was witnessing the same thing. The situation eventually became impossible to ignore. Ticket demand became so intense that tournament organizers were forced to address the situation publicly. The message was simple: the stadium was sold out. Alex Eala hadn't even played her first match, but her fans had already filled the seats. For Navarro, this must have been a remarkable moment. He had spent hundreds of millions of dollars creating a state-of-the-art tennis facility designed to attract massive crowds and the world's best players. Yet, one of the biggest surprises came from a 21-year-old Filipina, whose popularity was turning ticket demand into a phenomenon. This wasn't simply about tennis anymore. It was about community, pride, and belonging. Filipino fans were traveling long distances, organizing reunions, changing travel plans, and spending their time and money just to be there when Alex Eala played. They weren't treating her matches like ordinary sporting events. They were treating them like moments they couldn't afford to miss. And that's what makes the Alex Eala effect so fascinating. She doesn't need to be a Grand Slam champion or a top 5 player to generate extraordinary attention. Her connection with Filipino fans is powerful enough to follow her from one tournament to another. Washington saw it. Toronto saw it. And now Cincinnati was seeing it too. The billionaire owner had invested $260 million to transform a tennis complex. But the biggest force filling that complex wasn't concrete, technology, luxury seating, or new courts. It was the fans. And once again, Alex Eala's supporters had made their presence impossible to ignore. Toronto had already witnessed the incredible power of Alex Eala's fan base. Tournament organizers were forced to move her to center court after the 2,800-seat grandstand proved too small to handle the demand. Every match she played in Toronto sold out, while Filipino supporters transformed the atmosphere into something that felt less like a regular tennis tournament and more like a celebration of national pride. Now Cincinnati was experiencing that same phenomenon, and this time fans were going even further. College reunions were being organized around Eala's matches. Families were traveling across state lines, and one supporter reportedly drove 8 hours from Toronto just to watch her compete again. For Ben Navarro, the timing could not have been more remarkable. He had invested around $260 million into transforming the Lindner Family Tennis Center, creating what was supposed to become one of the most impressive tennis venues in the United States. Navarro, who built his fortune through Sherman Financial Group and Credit One Bank, acquired the tournament in 2022. At one point, there was even consideration of moving the event to Charlotte, North Carolina, but Navarro ultimately chose to keep the tournament in Mason, Ohio, and make a massive investment in its future. The result was a dramatic transformation. The campus expanded from roughly 20 acres to more than 40 acres, with new courts, upgraded fan facilities, a major player clubhouse, indoor tennis facilities, and a new sunken stadium designed to bring spectators closer to the action. The project was completed in just 11 months, an extraordinary turnaround for such a massive redevelopment. The goal was clear: create a world-class tournament environment that could attract elite players, bigger crowds, and a new generation of tennis fans. The finished complex was designed to make an immediate impression. It featured dozens of outdoor courts, an indoor tennis facility, pickleball and paddle courts, expanded seating, large video displays, shaded fan areas, and a massive clubhouse for players. The crown jewel was the new sunken stadium, designed so spectators could enter from above and immediately look down toward the court. It was a completely different experience from the old facility. When the transformation was unveiled, the atmosphere was already full of excitement. Major tennis names were present for the opening, and tournament director Bob Moran officially declared the new Lindner Family Tennis Center ready for play. The message was simple: Cincinnati had built something special. The early results proved that the investment was working. The Cincinnati Open drew a record crowd in 2025, with hundreds of thousands of fans attending and a huge percentage traveling from outside the Cincinnati area. The tournament's reputation continued to grow, and players began speaking about the event as one of the most important stops on the tennis calendar. Some even compared the atmosphere and prestige to the sport's biggest tournaments. Then Alex Eala arrived, and suddenly the attention surrounding the tournament reached another level. The ticket rush for Eala's matches began before she had even stepped onto the court. Bob Moran had already witnessed some of the greatest players in tennis history compete at the Lindner Family Tennis Center. He had seen Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Serena Williams attract enormous crowds. He had experienced major ticket rushes before, but the reaction to Eala was different. The demand was so intense that the ticketing system reportedly struggled under the sudden surge of interest. Organizers were forced to respond quickly as the volume of fans trying to secure tickets overwhelmed expectations. This wasn't simply a normal spike caused by a famous player. It was a wave of demand driven by a community that had followed Eala across tournaments and across borders. One group of Filipino fans reportedly planned an entire college reunion around a trip to Cincinnati. These friends were now living in different parts of the United States, but they coordinated their schedules because they wanted to be together when Eala played. Another supporter had already watched Eala compete in Toronto and then made the extraordinary decision to drive roughly 8 hours to Cincinnati to see her again. That's what makes the Eala effect so unusual. These weren't casual spectators deciding to attend a tennis match at the last minute. People were changing travel plans, organizing reunions, driving for hours, and crossing state lines because they wanted to see one particular player. Moran had already acknowledged that a significant portion of Cincinnati Open ticket buyers come from outside the greater Cincinnati area. He understood the economic impact of those traveling fans. They stay in hotels, eat at restaurants, shop locally, and turn the tournament into a major regional event. But even with all that experience, the response from the Filipino community to Alex Eala was something he had not encountered before. And then came the announcement everyone was waiting for. The stadium had sold out. The Filipino fans had done it again. The $260 million stage that Ben Navarro had built to showcase the world's best tennis players had suddenly become another chapter in the Alex Eala phenomenon. Navarro had made a huge investment in the future of tennis in the Midwest. But the response to Eala showed that the value of a tennis tournament isn't measured only by its courts, architecture, or seating capacity. Sometimes it comes down to the emotional connection between a player and her fans. Bob Moran has spent years managing the Cincinnati Open. He has dealt with superstar players, complicated schedules, packed stadiums, international media, and the enormous logistics required to operate a major tournament. Yet Alex Eala created a situation that caught even experienced organizers off guard. The morning Eala's tickets became available, demand surged at an extraordinary pace. Organizers were scrambling to keep up with the volume of interest, and the reaction showed something important. This wasn't directly connected to rankings, Grand Slam titles, or traditional measures of tennis popularity. It was something deeper. Just days earlier, Toronto tournament officials had described the unprecedented effect Eala was having on ticket demand. Now Cincinnati was experiencing the same phenomenon almost immediately. The location had changed, the tournament had changed, but the reaction from Filipino fans remained remarkably consistent. And the stories coming out of Cincinnati made the Eala effect even clearer. Fans weren't simply showing up because they happened to be in town. They were planning their trips around her. They were coordinating reunions around her matches. They were driving for hours to see her compete. They were turning a tennis tournament into a gathering point for a community. That's why this Cincinnati story matters. Alex Eala may have been the player walking onto the court, but thousands of supporters were creating the atmosphere around her. The new $260 million Lindner Family Tennis Center provided the stage, but Eala's fans were filling it with energy. And once again, the message was impossible to miss. Wherever Alex Eala goes, her fans are willing to follow. One group of fans planned their entire college reunion around a trip to see Alex Eala, coordinating travel from different parts of the United States simply for the chance to watch the 21-year-old Filipina compete. Another fan had already watched Eala in Toronto and then made the extraordinary decision to drive 8 hours to Cincinnati to see her again. Not a quick flight, not a short trip, an 8-hour drive, because watching Alex Eala play was worth every mile for Bob Moran, who had helped oversee the transformation of the Lindner Family Tennis Center. The reaction was almost impossible to believe. The massive renovation had turned the Cincinnati Open campus into a completely different venue. The investment, made with support from the city of Mason, Warren County, and the state of Ohio, expanded the campus to more than 40 acres. The facility now featured 31 outdoor tennis courts, a 6-court indoor complex, pickleball and paddle courts, and a massive player clubhouse with a restaurant, coffee bar, lounge spaces, and an indoor recovery area. The renovation also introduced climate-controlled seating on center court, creating an experience designed to take Cincinnati tennis to another level. The goal had always been transformation, as design director Kristen Bird explained. The idea was to create a facility that would leave fans stunned when they walked onto the campus. And that investment was already attracting huge crowds. A significant share of Cincinnati Open ticket buyers come from outside the greater Cincinnati area, bringing visitors into hotels, restaurants, and local businesses. Moran had seen the economic impact firsthand. He understood what a major tournament could do for a city, but he had never seen anything like the reaction to Alex Eala. This wasn't a player returning after years of success at Cincinnati. This was Eala's debut at the tournament. She had never played on these courts before. On paper, she could have been viewed as simply another name in a loaded draw. Instead, her fans turned her arrival into one of the biggest stories surrounding the event. Eala herself arrived with a completely different mindset. After an extraordinary run of tournaments, she spoke about staying healthy, appreciating the lessons she had learned, and remaining grateful for the opportunities ahead. She knew she had come a long way, but she also knew there was still much farther to go. Then the organizers had to make an announcement. The stadium was sold out. The Filipino fans had done it again. And Bob Moran, the man who had helped build a $260 million stage for the biggest names in tennis, was confronted with something that money alone couldn't create. The fans had become the spectacle. This wasn't simply a ticket rush. It was a movement. The Cincinnati Open had spent years building courts, stadiums, player facilities, and fan experiences designed to attract the world's best tennis. But Eala's arrival demonstrated something even more powerful. Sometimes the most valuable asset in sports isn't the court, the prize money, or the ranking points. It's the people who show up. And that leads to the bigger question facing Ben Navarro, Bob Moran, and everyone involved with the Cincinnati Open. What does the Alex Eala effect mean for the future of this tournament and for tennis itself? The answer could be both exciting and disruptive, because what Eala is creating goes beyond a successful run of matches. Her popularity is changing the way people think about what a tennis star can represent. Her matches are becoming celebrations of identity, culture, community, and national pride. Fans aren't simply coming to watch tennis. They're coming to be part of something. The signs have been appearing everywhere. Cincinnati wasn't the first tournament to experience it. In Washington, ticket demand reportedly surged after Eala's matches were announced, and her matches repeatedly attracted sold-out crowds. Even when weather forced the final to be pushed to Monday, supporters still showed up in force. In Toronto, organizers had to move Eala onto center court after the 2,800-seat grandstand could not handle the demand. Now Cincinnati was seeing the same phenomenon, and that's what makes the moment so significant. Ben Navarro's $260 million transformation of the Lindner Family Tennis Center was a long-term bet on tennis in the Midwest. He had committed to keeping the tournament in Cincinnati for decades, and had considered other possibilities before ultimately choosing to double down on Mason, Ohio. The vision was to create a world-class tennis destination capable of standing alongside the sport's biggest events. Then a 21-year-old from the Philippines arrived and demonstrated that the most powerful force in tennis might not be the architecture, the prize money, or even the ranking system. .it might be the fans. .it might be the community that can transform a suburban tennis complex into a sea of Philippine flags and passionate supporters. It might be the people willing to travel hundreds of miles, rearrange their schedules, organize reunions, and spend hours on the road simply to watch their favorite player compete. Even some of the biggest names in women's tennis have recognized the impact Eala is having. Coco Gauff has spoken positively about Eala bringing a new demographic and new energy to the WTA Tour, emphasizing the importance of having athletes who can inspire people to follow the sport. Naomi Osaka has also experienced Eala's rise firsthand, and her reaction after facing the young Filipina added another layer to the growing story. When established stars begin recognizing the significance of a rising player, the message becomes difficult to ignore. This may be bigger than a hot streak. The Eala effect isn't simply about filling stadiums. It's about building a legacy. It's about inspiring the next generation of Filipino athletes to believe that they can compete on the biggest stages in the world. It's about showing young fans that tennis isn't reserved for one country, one background, or one type of athlete. And it's about creating a connection between a player and a community that can follow her wherever she goes. The Cincinnati sellout is simply the latest chapter. The road ahead could include the U.S. Open, international tournaments, major Asian events, and countless opportunities for Eala to continue expanding her audience. And if the pattern from Washington, Toronto, and Cincinnati continues, the tennis world may have to rethink how it measures a player's impact. Because sometimes the biggest story isn't found in the rankings. Sometimes it isn't found in the prize money. Sometimes it isn't even found in the final score. Sometimes it's found in the stands. It's found in the families traveling across state lines. It's found in the friends turning a college reunion into a tennis trip. It's found in the supporter driving 8 hours just to see one match. It's found in